So we just got through talking about this with our kiddos, talking about the purity of heart, pure of heart, and today we're covering the seventh commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. And for our kiddos, like we talked about at the beginning, we look at this a little differently. We look at it from a purity of heart standard. And, I like the analogy here about, having the pure heart and the things that you allow in your heart. God doesn't move, Jesus doesn't move, but we allow those things to get in our heart, and then it makes us wander away from Him, and then it becomes harder for us to see Him and hear Him and understand His will for our lives. I kind of think about my dad, and my dad was kind of like the gentleman in the clip we saw there about, how Terry would just walk off in conversation. Well, my dad would do that. He'd be talking to you, and he'd turn, and my dad was real bad to mumble. And he'd turn and walk away from you while he's mumbling, and then he'd get mad at you for not hearing him, But that's kind of what we do to God, right? We choose other things. We let things get in our hearts that are impure, and it causes us to wander away from Him. And then we don't hear God, and then we're like, God, where you at? Well, God didn't go anywhere. We're the ones that moved, right? Now, as we talk about this purity of heart as it relates to adultery, and this is what we talked about with the kids this morning in Sunday school, is this is a heart, right? It's a husband and a wife and all that. And, what we explain to the kids is like, when you give your heart away to somebody, you want to save your heart and give your whole heart, your complete heart, to the person you marry, to the person not just the person you love, because there's a lot of times people will quote unquote love somebody, but they don't ever marry that person. So that's why when it comes to this, it's like you give this to one person, just like you give your whole heart to who? You give your whole heart to Jesus, right? Okay? Jesus doesn't want half a heart. He wants your whole heart. Amen? Okay? So here's what would happen when we allow adultery to get into our lives. It's like this. It's like, okay, it's like we give our whole heart to our spouse. That's who we want to give our heart to, but instead we try and, all right, I'm going to give you that. Okay? Does anybody want this much of a heart? Right? How would you like your spouse to give you this much of their heart? Would that make you happy? Do you want this? Well, what about this? Do you want it this way? What about that? And here's the thing. Even if I take all these broken pieces and I tape them back together, would you want it then? See, God knew what He was talking about when He said that marriage, the marital relationship was supposed to be between one man and one woman in the covenant of marriage, because you start giving away pieces of your heart, and then on the day that you try to give your whole heart to somebody, you can't, because you've given away pieces of it, and you didn't keep it holy and pure for them. And unlike Christ, who can take all the broken pieces and make it new, you know what? That spouse or that other person, they can forgive you and they can love you through. It doesn't mean they can't love you through all those pieces. But I promise you, it's going to cause a lot of problems for you. And it's going to be difficult. Okay? Does that make sense? So save your whole heart for that one person that God has for you. Okay? I'm going to give these coloring sheets to the kids.